I wanted to explain our global unity campaigns and what we're calling a global unity pandemic as the next stage of this health pandemic. As we come out of the health pandemic, we're actually hoping to create a pandemic of global unity, using the word pandemic in this case as an adjective. So the Greater Unity Pandemic Action Team that I'm now involved with actually is an international partnership for global unity, for global cooperation in the service of implementing this program that Dr. Reddy had described of practical, local, holistic humanitarian entrepreneurship education and training, and the putting in related regenerative infrastructure that will allow local populations in every country to acquire those survival skills that they need. And we're basing it on, of course, remote learning and virtual collaboration, and looking at those solutions that are most relevant to individual local needs. So as per the local considerations, but it's being done in service of implementing and achieving those sustainable development goals locally, leaving no one behind. So the Global Unity Pandemic is really just a first response platform to raise awareness and support from, of course, where we are now with this shelter-in-place environment that is really dictating our collective interests for the immediate future. So the idea is for the We Energime Global Cooperation Turtle Island International Civil Society Organization, which began with the planting of our first tree of peace and reconciliation. That organization being the primary coordinator for this global unity pandemic, where their mandate is actually what we call life value peace education. And so we are implementing a related Victory Pandemic local event, project, and program that is attached to that learning system. So what we want to do through the We Energime Global Cooperation Turtle Island projects is actually implement what we call life learning gardens. So within these gardens, we intend to actually demonstrate that it's possible that human behavior, through the introduction of these more coherent and inclusive ideas like we just saw in the previous presentation, and through the adoption of holistic, nature-based, knowledge-centric visions, can be unplugged, reprogrammed, in such a way that people's lives moving forward can actually positively affect the changes that are necessary in order to create a better world that we all know is possible. So the goal actually is rather overarching. It's human consciousness 2.0, so that human individuals are capable of relating to all living things as if we are part of nature and nature is part of us. And I think we're trying to bridge that disconnect in human consciousness. So we've been doing this for a few months now, coming together as a group, an organization called Global Unity Pandemic, even though the We Energime Global Cooperation Turtle Island International Civil Society Organization has been around since late 2019. But we are starting the next phase of what we call the Unity Pandemic by gathering at our trees of peace and reconciliation. We've planted 3 here in Toronto area, one in particular in a community called St. Jamestown in Toronto. So we're gathering today, Thursday, September 22nd, on Earth Day, in the evening. So in about 12 hours from now, we will recount our history since planting our first tree of peace and reconciliation in September 2019 in Pickering, Ontario, up until this moment. So we'll also be marking that with what we call a minute of silence at sunset. And sunset today for us is 8:40 p.m., or actually 8:10 p.m. And we'll be marking this as a minute of peace. And we'll be asking all people of the earth actually to come together with us to observe this minute of peace at the same time as we do. And asking that all people of the world also repeat this minute of peace every week on Tuesdays at 4 p.m. Eastern time, or 8 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time, in solidarity with our mission of assisting humanity to achieve global peace through a process what we call reconciliation and forgiveness. So we're inaugurating this Global Unity Week in Canada, the United States Kingdom, the UK, and in Sierra Leone in Africa. And those serving as examples of achieving peaceful, resilient, and regenerative localized economies in all communities across the entire Commonwealth of Nations, which of course includes India, and eventually around the world. So our event in St. Jamestown tonight will also announce the next phase of the global unity pandemic, which will focus again on Canada, Sierra Leone, and the UK, but eventually all Commonwealth countries. So we're now in the process of planning a series of high-level events in all three countries, which include the Trees of Peace and Reconciliation tree planting ceremonies, again in all three countries, now targeted for Saturday, June 5th, which is World Environment Day. And this marks the beginning of what we want to create is a week-long Bubble Fun Festival in Sierra Leone, during which time we'll also host what's an event called the Sunlight Spectacle 2021, which is a virtual edutainment event. That will be on June 10th with our partners in Canada, Sierra Leone, and the UK, but with contributions being solicited from all of what we call the Five Eyes partners, which is the USA, Australia, New Zealand, and Bermuda, which actually serves as what's called the iris of the Five Eyes. So we'll invite participation as well from artists and entertainers, basically all members of what's called the Orange Economy, from the entire Commonwealth of Nations community. So the 54 countries of the Commonwealth, along with all indigenous communities of Turtle Island, so North America, also including Mexico and the Caribbean. So this year is year one basically, with plans to expand the festival to eventually host Global Unity Week events across the entire Commonwealth of Nations, in every one of the 54 countries in future years. And we'll also be inviting all 88 countries that are members of La Francophonie, as well as all countries of the African Union, eventually to include all countries of the earth, to celebrate these Bubble Fun festivals. So the idea around the Bubble Fun Festival is to promote the global unity that we would like to achieve. So we're creating victory pandemic programs in multiple countries right now, which is intended to actually promote and assist people in local communities worldwide, but locally, with the deployment of these learning gardens and the learning programs that are associated with those gardens. So to teach people about how to implement the local climate smart solutions in infrastructure that can produce certified climate smart food. So this infrastructure is the CSV gardens, or the Climate Smart Victory Gardens, the Victory Forests, the Wheel of Life farms, and the types of what we call bubble pod buildings, along with promoting climate smart kitchens, where we'll demonstrate and teach people locally about the use and preparation of this climate smart food. So we create a global network of these life learning gardens via these Victory Unity Pandemic Learning Garden program, which will eventually include, of course, the Climate Smart Victory Gardens, or CSV Gardens. That's actually being delivered by an organization called the Foundation for Building Sustainable Communities, FBSC. The Victory Forests, which are also learning forests, which are set up as basically 3D polyculture food forests, delivered again by this organization, FBSC. Wheel of Life farm schools, which are actually being delivered by an organization called TQLMA out of Pakistan. And this is actually being implemented through an organization called CDF and the CDF Global Partnership, working with an organization out of Vietnam called Empowering the Poor Through Waste Transformation, EPWT. And then we're also developing a climate smart kitchens program, using the kitchens again as learning kitchens. And so there's an organization here in Toronto called Kindred Kitchens, which is developing that program. And then finally, we have a Spark Learning Centers program delivered by a Spark for Humanity team. And they're working with a company called Pyropod, which is a member of PodNet, which is based out of Iceland. So we will be promoting and developing a global network of what we call Spark Learning Centers, basically peace and regenerative community education and training centers that will essentially teach people, local community members in every community where we're invited to come in, focusing on youth, educators, decision makers, as well as really focusing on the female humanitarian entrepreneurs and their supporters, so the men. And we're going to be teaching people about the various practical solutions to achieving regenerative communities and regenerative local economies. So we're helping communities accelerate the implementation of solutions for achieving the Sustainable Development Goals, but also helping communities move beyond sustainability by helping them help themselves. We really want them to leapfrog into the kind of the 21st century global collaborative and what we call cooperative economy. So where cooperation becomes more of the paradigm versus competition as the only paradigm for doing business. So to make this work, we're already beginning to establish what we call a global network of Victory Pandemic community engagement and action teams in local communities worldwide to help host the events that we do, which includes the Tree of Peace and Reconciliation tree planting ceremonies, the Bubble Fun festivals, and other local community engagement events. So where we have local teams that will help identify local talent, entertainers that can contribute to the Sunlight Spectacle edutainment events, which coincide with the solar eclipse events that happen around the world. So we did last year in Toronto at our St. Jamestown Tree of Peace and Reconciliation, the first Sunlight Spectacle 2020 event. This edutainment event was coordinated out of Bermuda. We're now planning the next event. And we go back to these trees of peace and reconciliation in our communities, and those become focal points. So the Victory Pandemic teams, we created Victory Pandemic GTA, a Greater Toronto area, last year. We're starting to organize them around the world now. They would also be charged with organizing the local Bubble Fun festivals. And so we've created an internationally coordinated Bubble Fun festival network. And we're tasking the local Victory Pandemic teams to organize themselves so that they can also create local Unity Pandemic business teams consisting of these local humanitarian entrepreneurs in order to work with the local, mostly female humanitarian entrepreneurs in the community who can begin building and demonstrating these open source, regenerative, climate smart infrastructure solutions in their own local communities. So the climate smart Victory Gardens, the Victory Forests, these bubble buildings, which we have determined are probably the only climate smart greenhouses in existence. So our plan is actually aligned with what's called the PodNet plan to deploy this climate smart infrastructure and these growing solutions, these greenhouses that have been outfitted with these bubble technologies. But we want to start in schoolyards as climate smart classrooms. So as well as other places where the public, like youth, the target audience of youth educators and decision makers can see and experience these buildings, and where researchers and local institutions of higher education, our universities, our colleges, and their students as well as other local entrepreneurs, will have access to these buildings in order to learn about and experience the solutions firsthand. So ultimately, the Unity Pandemic Business Group Network plans to assist in the deployment of these climate smart classrooms as what we're calling Spark Learning Centers, where the local Unity Pandemic teams will organize and create what we call heptamatrix partnerships, or interfaith neighborhood and business collaboratives that can organize community members and businesses to help build at least one peace center, or what we call a hub of climate smart learning in each community where we're invited, and where the people who work in these learning centers will have the opportunity to actually teach all of the local residents in that community about the things that are related to peace, reconciliation, forgiveness, and the local implementation of these solutions to achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. So that was our original plan, created January 2020, to establish a local or global community peace centers network. So this first phase, again, Canada, Sierra Leone, UK, but eventually all Commonwealth nations. We'll also be engaging, of course, here in North America with the Indian Canadian diaspora as much as possible to encourage and get their support for what we're doing. And in Africa, there's at least 2 other countries, Kenya and Nigeria, will very likely be next in line after our launch in Sierra Leone. And we'll want to establish what we call a Canada-India Climate Smart Network, starting with a Victory Pandemic India team. So I will hopefully have discussions with Dr. Reddy after this in the following weeks, and we'll begin to introduce them to our Unity Pandemic business team and connect them to organizations like the Canada-India Climate Smart Network to create this network, and groups like the Canada-India Network Society, the Canada-India Business Council, and then begin to create partnerships through this heptamatrix partnership system that we've been using in Drawdown Markham, where I've been organizing for the last 2 years, where we would like to create partners along the lines of the United Nations multi-stakeholder partnerships. So the program we're actually implementing with our partners, again, focused on We Energize Global Cooperation Turtle Island, which of course has the mandate to educate people about life value and peace, and what we call life value peace education, has this mandate to build the life learning gardens, serving as the classrooms to deliver the programs around the practical ways, meaning life value and why it's more important actually than money value. And so we're working with these organizations like the Ad Hoc International Advisory Board of Goodwill Ambassadors, which I am the Goodwill Ambassador for Canada, the Francophonie, Turtle Island, and the Commonwealth. And so we are trying to replicate the successes of each community and share them among our global network. And this is where we want to engage communities everywhere around the world to build safe and sustainable communities and cities, which actually take climate action with the goal of leaving no one behind. And so this is a plan that we're implementing this decade, starting now until 2030 at least, during what's called the Decade of Action and Delivery on those SDGs. And we're planning on engaging actually with the United Nations Global Compact local networks infrastructure. And our goal is actually to increase the current number of civil society members in the UNGC in order to balance and hold accountable, especially the multinational corporations and those international governmental agencies and governments that have already been publicly registered with the UNGC, pursuant to the existing 2021 to 2023 local network strategy. So we're actually engaging with these chief executives of these corporations and NGOs and nonprofits and civil society organizations, asking those chief executives and assisting them to join the UN Global Compact. So we're getting the civil society organizations to become a major influential voice within the United Nations Global Compact, which is dominated right now by businesses and corporations. But we can overwhelm them with the voice of the small scale, the rural, and the local, and where we'll be demanding basically these chief executives to work with us and not against us. And we want these chief executives to actually, we'll be asking them as well to invite 10 more members to join in, not corporations, but 10 more civil society local organizations to create what we call a worldwide network of local interfaith neighborhood and business collaboratives. So we're creating this, what we call global network of local networks, whose mandate is to build safe and sustainable communities and cities that leave no one behind. Where the benefit of joining this network of local networks is to open these doors worldwide and locally as members of the UN Global Compact, along with the other nonprofit organizations in our network, so that we can join, grow, and expand the UNGC local networks infrastructure, which advocates for the 10 principles of the United Nations Global Compact. So the local networks are promoting respect for human rights, inclusive, of course, of indigenous rights, labor, environment, and anti-corruption, while also helping to build climate-smart economy in local communities. So this is what the Ad Hoc International Advisory Board of Goodwill Ambassadors is currently launching as a multilingual, multinational UNGC local network membership drive, starting 2021-23 in India, in Venezuela, in Canada, in USA, among others. And their 21 to 23 campaign is actually intended to complement the existing UN Global Compact local network strategy. So we have a number of organizations supporting us. So the Global PodNet Cooperative, which helps local communities organize their own bubble fun festivals, organization called GTI Enterprises, and We Are Mother Earth, which is organizing the Spark for Humanity campaign, which includes what's called a Youth Build Academy and return to honor hands-on education of high school and other formerly incarcerated youth and students, which allows those youth and students to heal from some of their past traumas. They're taking a strength-based approach for what's working for them in their development and career path, and which is also developing a network of what they call villages of the future. These are called Togetherland. So working as well, I mentioned earlier, with the Foundation for Building Sustainable Communities to deploy these climate smart victory gardens, the victory forests, the climate smart kitchens, and all the related community learning programs and the related certification systems. And this organization or a company actually called Kindred Kitchens, which will be delivering the climate smart kitchens programs. And these will actually be the primary places in the local communities where we'll implement our marketing programs, and where the climate smart growing systems will get constant visibility and recognition by other community members, by the non-farmers.
Lloyd, sorry to interrupt you.
Mm-hmm. So do I have a
few? You might have a few questions before.
Yeah. I just want. I'm almost done.
Yeah, yeah, I
I
know.
just want to finish this last bit just to mention the Community Development Foundation out of Pakistan, which is also managing a global women's development network, which was actually created by an American International Education Foundation, Professor Dr. Tamara Omar, and the Community Development Foundation President Mariam Khan. So these are some of the organizations that we're now working with, and we're coming together now in a unity campaign right now. So this is what we're going to be hopefully rolling out across India eventually as well, as we move forward. But as I mentioned before, we're starting actually in Africa, but we are targeting eventually all Commonwealth countries. Eventually, also, of course, the Francophonie countries, because Canada being the only G20 country actually that's a member of both the Commonwealth and the Francophonie. So that's the 54 countries of the Commonwealth, 88 countries of the Francophonie, makes up something like 2/3 of the global population in just those two organizations. And I'd like to mention that as well, that what the symbolism of the Tree of Peace and Reconciliation means. So when we plant a tree of peace and reconciliation in, let's say, in a garden, that garden can be converted into a climate smart victory garden or not, but the tree is symbolic of a gathering place within the community where people can come together. If the tree is visible to people as they're having this spot in their community to gather and discuss solutions to achieving the SDGs. So this becomes a place in the community that becomes a sacred space for discussing solutions to achieving what they would like to achieve in their own community as per their own community needs. But the tree symbolizes the unity of all people as one. We are all human beings. So when you gather around the trees, they symbolize that unity. Therefore, we ask that anybody that gathers around the trees of peace and reconciliation to discuss these solutions to achieving the goals, to put aside their politics, to put aside the religious differences, to put aside all differences and come together as human beings with the goal of leaving no one behind in their own communities. So those trees become symbolic places to discuss solutions and to just lay aside their differences, no matter the color of their skin or their religious affiliation or their political affiliation. Put those aside. Let's just focus on those solutions and have those discussions to say, look, where are the biggest problems? The idea of LNOB, leave no one behind, is also this philosophy of privileged and those that are most marginalized first, and saying, where are the biggest problems in our community? How can we solve those first and get to the most marginalized peoples and communities first? And let's just set aside those politics, set aside those differences.